Which one are we on?
Hi, I'm Rafael Rivera.
Kevin Karczewski.
And Nick Snow.
And we're here representing POV TV, where we give our uncensored,
unfiltered,
and probably unsolicited
opinions regarding film and television. And of course, we're here to talk about American Horror Story Season 9, 1984.
Episode number 1.
Slasher. So these two get to enjoy the 80s genre where I'm reliving it. So let's just...
You make it sound so awful.
It is awful.
I mean, I spent 3 years in the 80s, so come on.
Oh my God.
Technically.
All right, take 4.
We're not age shaming.
Oh my God. Well, it starts off in 1970 and we're at Camp Redwood, and right away there are like 10 murders in the first 60 seconds of this part of the segment.
Well, we thought there were 10.
Well,
We'll get there.
Yeah. And any time where there's a 3-way in a bunk bed on a cabin, it just screams murder about to happen.
Yeah. They obviously didn't know
about
the
it.
rules
Yeah.
back in the 70s. I think Scream was the movie that set out the rules of you do this, you die. You do this, you die. So they haven't learned that yet.
No.
And it's quite unfortunate.
So RIP to the 10 campers.
Oh my God. Don't forget the kid was really brilliant in like bringing his dad's lambskin. He was like so proud of it. He was like,
So
He
sensitive.
really made a point of that.
Silky to the touch.
It impacted me, my first note was lambskin. So that's how I opened my notes for this season.
Yeah, commercial. There are probably some royalties for lambskin. Sorry, Trojan. So that happens. The Mr. Jingles, you hear the keys, as we learn that his name, that's his name later on, that's his name, Jingles, because the jingling of his keys, he's dragging that poor girl that was supposed to have a menage a trois in her ironclad bra.
Traded that for a stab in the face.
It's horrible.
Like gruesome.
It's
yeah.
like they froze frame it, like right there, just so you got
Yeah,
look
like-
at
Like they
it.
held the frame for an extra
Yeah.
second. Yeah.
It was-
True.
I was like, oh.
We got the couple stabbed directly through them as well, so that was a
Yeah,
nice touch.
I was impressed. I don't think I've
Yeah.
ever seen that before in a slasher movie.
Mm.
I've seen people
You don't know Jason
impaled.
Voorhees work very well, do you?
Oh well, he impaled people with spears together. I remember during sex.
At a
but-
camp, by a lake, like all the fixings.
It's all there. It's all there.
in the dark. So we cut from that scene and we get the quintessential 80s graphic introduction of all the main characters during an aerobics class. And I think it's hysterical that we see Cody Fern trade his Prince of Darkness for a pair of leotards as he's conducting a class of aerobics and people are thrusting away. I just thought it was...
Thrusting while flirting. Flirting while thrusting. You know, there's a lot going on in those classes.
You know what? I'd rather take one of those classes than do yoga. For some reason, I always get like the sweaty crack in front of me.
It's the worst.
It's terrible. So we get introduced to all the characters. You have Xavier, right? It's Cody Fern. You have Montana. That's Billy Lord. I kept calling her Dakota for a minute there.
Not Dakota.
Ray is the token black guy because I don't know what the actor's name is. I'm terrible. I don't
Yeah, that
remember
one I
him.
don't know. I know he kind of got a big break in Dear White People was his first kind of like big role
Shit,
on
I'm
TV.
terrible. I'm terrible.
Yeah, that one I don't know.
And then we get Chet, which is a Olympic skier, Gus
Yes.
Kentworthy.
Yes.
Okay, and he loves his body because he showed it off for Brooke, and and then, of course we get Emma Roberts as Brooke, and she was thrusting away, and then she looked at him and she thrusted some more. I was like, all right, girl, get there, get it.
Well, you know, in the middle of the class, it would have been weird to stop. Then, like, you gotta,
He was
you gotta
like
keep
lifting
going.
his shirt up, like, he was
Yeah.
like, all right, you
That
know
was
what
his
you're
calling
doing.
card.
You
That was
know
his
what you're
calling
doing.
card. It was obviously he's done it before. So we get that funny little graphic intro, and then we go straight into the shower scene where Billy Lord is just like, I'm not a lesbian.
Just friendly.
Got
That's
a nice
all.
set of tits, though.
Yeah.
I was like, what's going on here?
What did she say? Like that girl from Cheers?
Oh, shit.
She said something like that.
She mentioned that her personality, or that she looked like the girl
Yeah,
from Cheers.
yeah.
So I hope it's not Kirstie Alley because she's a big girl now.
Yeah, I don't think so. No.
It could be Shelley Long. That's the only one I
Yeah,
can think of is Shelley
yeah.
Long. And Shelley Long is quintessential 80s. She did a
Right.
lot of. She did a lot of good movies like True Beverly Hills.
Don't get me started.
Yeah.
I'll do a 17-hour podcast on that movie.
we could totally do that one. I think we could.
Beverly Hills.
So, they have their own introduction, and then they go into the lobby where they meet all the cast, and they start talking about murders. I think Xavier starts talking about all these murders happening.
Yeah, they're kind of throwing out a lot of reasons to get out of LA for the summer. You got the Olympics, which is going to make the city crazy.
Traffic, heavy, all that.
Right, and then you've got the murders, which you want to avoid that as well. So we're getting lots of reasons to kind of get out.
Traffic, murders.
Either way, you could lose your life, but
That's awesome. And this is where Brooke is really funny, where she pipes up and she talks about that you shouldn't sleep open with your windows open.
yeah. Well, you've always kind of heard that maybe it's an urban legend, maybe not. There's more murders in the summer.
Right, right.
And you always kind of hear it's because, well, it's hot and the heat kind of makes people crazy. But she said, no, it's just because people sleep with their windows open.
Yeah.
And so
And
the
like,
ease of
she's the one who
access.
brings it up. Brooke brings it up, and then like she ends up being the one that's doing it. Like,
Okay, thank you. Cut to her sleeping with her windows open.
Yeah.
Which that's not how the guy got. Well, we didn't really see how he got.
yeah,
it.
no,
He don't- he
I
just
guess he got in
appeared.
through a door or something.
Yeah.
He
Because,
just appeared.
yeah.
But I'm like, you're just warning people about that, and here
And
you
then-
are.
Huh.
So I don't
You
know.
criticize her.
I was like a little bit suspicious. I'm like, are we a murderer here? So we're not worried about our windows being open? She played a great murder in Scream 4. Spoiler alert.
So I'm gonna treat this like a Scooby-Doo episode. I'm sorry.
It
but
kind of was.
It kind of
Okay.
felt like a Scooby-Doo
Okay.
episode. Like they
Oh,
threw
man.
all of these red herring characters at you.
You
and
kind of
have
got
to
all the
figure
options
out
out there.
who
Yeah.
are these people that might be
Yeah.
potential murders, or are they multiple murders? Because I
Right.
feel like there's a copycat.
Right.
We'll get into that.
Yep.
So yeah, Brooke gets attacked by Ramirez, which is a great crossover, as we were talking about, to Hotel Cortez, where we got to see the same actor play Ramirez in the Halloween dinner party. And he really made it known that he's all about Satan. So here we go again with American Horror Story and,
Yes.
and Satanism. But, it was just like, swear on Satan.
Right, yeah.
It was so
Yeah.
weird.
Yeah.
That got very weird, but
It seemed like cultish almost, yeah.
it's almost like it's like a calling card for American Horror Story. They like to throw it out there, and every
True.
season at some point there's a reference to
Mhm.
Satan. And it
True.
just seems to Satanism's on trend with Sabrina the Teenage Witch and all
Yeah,
these other
we're
shows.
really latching on to that.
That it's like a
Yeah.
Hallmark commercial at this point.
Going for a ride.
Yikes.
So, yeah, look, I just wrote a note here. Yes, they get into the Scooby-Doo van and take off to the summer camp.
Oh my God. This is another, we had a few like obligatory scenes that are just cut basically from any Friday the 13th movie.
Yeah.
And this is one of them. You're in the van, drinking, smoking, doing whatever on the way to the camp. And you kind of run into another scene where you're warned by a local, get out now, you're all going to die.
It's like
Sometimes
Texas
Scooby-Doo.
Chainsaw.
Yeah,
Massacre,
I mean,
all
you know,
that,
you've
yeah.
seen it
This
100
is-
times. And,
Mhm.
and
I'm
you
gonna
just,
start naming people Velma and Fred and Daphne by the end of this season. But yeah, they get into the van, they start doing drugs right away, and you see a Polaroid camera. So I was kind of like distracted with all the forced 80s references when I'm looking at
Mhm.
everything. But you made a good point that Ray was saying that he had enough drugs for the whole summer, but he had this little tiny
The tiniest little thing. I was like, yeah.
So they pull into a gas station, and as a matter of fact, I just found out the gas station attendant was warning them when he found out that they're going to the Camp Redwood. But I looked up online, and that's Patrick Swayze's brother. Don
Which, when you
Swayze.
said that, I was like, okay, I definitely see that.
You see the resemblance,
Yeah,
right? In the
yeah.
eyes and everything like that. I thought it was very interesting. So they go in there to refuel and take a little breather, maybe sober up a hair, who knows. But Cody Fern, another 80s reference, goes to the payphone to check his answering machine message. And
what did he find on that machine?
well, he found that there's a voice of like a specter saying that you can't take your dick and walk away. I'm like, what the hell? Was that like, okay. Was that an ex-boyfriend?
Right,
A lover?
right.
Or a hit and run that, turned Fatal Attraction? That's what it felt like, a little Fatal Attraction message
A little
there.
bit.
And you mentioned that, I know where you're going. So the person that left this message is another suspect of someone that's going to show up later at the camp.
Yep.
Which I thought that was crazy.
Do some slashing.
Maybe
Like
some
it.
slashing. And then, so they get back onto the road after the gas station attendant warned them, and they're like, whatever, here's your money. And they freaking start smoking a bong. I'm like, where did these guys, they go from like uppers to downers to uppers, and here's the bong, but you see all these references, party van,
Yes.
80s, it was just, they even had the little beanbag ashtray on the table, which I noticed. I was like, oh geez. My dad had one of those. But they smack into a guy on the road. They totally had a roadkill moment, and they go out to inspect the body, and the
A little
guys.
bit of I Know What You Did Last Summer.
Oh,
That
yes.
made me think of not
Yeah.
80s, but still.
Let's
in
get the story straight.
the slasher
He
genre.
totally
yeah.
snapped. So, yeah, Xavier totally snapped at everyone. Like, we gotta get our story straight.
Yeah.
He goes, those cuts and bruises look old. Those aren't fresh.
Right.
So it was very odd how he quickly got a little paranoid. Maybe he was shaken up by the phone call, obviously. So they.
Yeah, he's like, I do this often. I know those aren't fresh.
Yes.
Take a look at his driving record.
So we get to the camp and they meet Leslie Grossman that happens to be chopping wood. Again, Scooby-Doo. Hi, kids. And she greets all of them and welcomes them to the camp. But can I just pause for a moment there? Cody Fern was the one that actually filled out an application, got the job, and he just brought all these other kids. So would he have been the only camp counselor if they all didn't tag along?
Yeah, he would have found another ragtag bunch. Who knows? Like, the way he formed that one was kind of impromptu.
Yeah, I mean, we haven't
Yes.
seen how many kids are actually going to show up,
That's
but
true.
it does seem like understaffed was going to be a huge issue no matter what.
Yeah.
That's a good point, though. I hadn't thought about.
Me neither.
I just thought it was
Because,
very interesting.
yeah, you assume he didn't call ahead and say, "Hey, I'm bringing some extra people."
Yeah, yeah. So even like this storyline is very 80s. Like it's just reading it along like an after-school special.
Right.
Okay, let's
Yeah.
all go to camp. Counselors. I'm going to be a veterinarian assistant. So they get to meet Margaret Booth, which is our favorite Leslie Grossman, and
Yes.
which I think she's a spectacular actress. I think she did a really good job last season,
Okay.
and I think she's going to do a good job this season playing the frustrated religious zealot. Is the best way I can describe her.
That's pretty spot on, to be honest.
It's like she was just like
Well, we come to find out she has a bit of a troubled past.
She does.
So.
Yeah, we'll get there. So they take the body and they toss it at the Nurse Rita, I believe is her name, is who they bring it to, and she tells them basically that this happens all the time. People get dehydrated from hiking out in the woods, blah blah blah. Leslie Grossman tells them, well, drownings are the #1 causes of death in camps. We have to be careful, and
So that's coming.
oh yes. And then we get to meet Chef Birdie. She was.
I wrote
Greasy.
Chef Birdie as an icon.
Greasy.
She is an
Greasy.
icon.
She's like smoking a cigarette. I love the
You're
fresh
a
air.
chef. You get all the oils and stuff going
That's
on.
true. That's
know.
true. That's like, what's his name? Mel's Diner from the show Alice. And way back, he was kind of dirty and dingy too.
You know, you get.
Mm.
Xavier kind of throws out a little joke, like calls dibs on her, and then
Yes.
she said you would know what to do if you got it.
I think that's her way of calling him on that he's gay. Like,
Maybe.
I think that was her
Maybe.
way of doing that.
Yeah.
So I'm just throwing it out there. I think Xavier's in the closet. He's frustrated and he kills people. Who knows?
Yeah, I know Latex Man's coming back.
Yeah. So I think it's. We've talked about that the last one.
We did.
You weren't here for that. We said Evan Peters going to come back as a latex.
Yeah.
So she gives him a tour of the cabins and basically tells him the boys are blue and the girls are red. Don't make purple.
Don't even try to make purple.
So bizarre. Her little nuances.
Love.
And I thought it was interesting, and I froze frame it really quickly, and I'll share the picture on the screen, is that when they're going into the men's cabin, the silhouette of the building with the windows was very Amityville Horror. very much.
I did not notice that, but when you showed me the picture, I was like,
it's just a classic
okay.
silhouette that's kind of burned on my memory because I found that movie terrifying as a kid. I saw that as a kid, so I'm a little scarred from it. That and The Shining are probably the two scariest movies I don't want to watch alone in the dark. So, and I'm still waiting for the Shining. Oh, there is a Shining reference. That's right. When they get into the Scooby-Doo van and they leave the gas station, they do an excellent panoramic shot of the road and going over the lake, which is the opening credits of The Shining. So I'm like, oh, look at these guys. They've done their homework. So, which I think is fantastic. So, you know, as she shows in the cabin, this is where she gets on her soapbox and starts pretty much, you know, showing her true colors on how she feels from a moral compass.
Right.
And she makes a reference that she was there along with Charles Keating, you know, the guy that was instrumental in the court cases against Larry Flint. And she gives a quick backstory on how she inherited some money from her husband to buy the camp.
Right.
And it just goes on from there. But we go into a campfire at night, and that's where the nurse...
Another obligatory scene, scary stories around the campfire.
Yes.
Yeah.
And they start talking about Mr. Jingles. This is where the nurse comes up. And she was just like... She was kind of like a protagonist. Like, don't you find it funny that you got no experience and you just out here working and, you know...
Yeah, she kind of just like laid it out real honestly.
She did. I thought she was being her character from Pose. Like, I was like, is she gonna bring out a little hammer and try to hit everybody or something? What was her name on Pose? I can't remember. Candy, that was her name.
Yeah, she was real blatant, just like,
she was just
I don't think you're the A+ camp counselor. That's not why you're here.
That's not, you just here because no one wants the job and you might die. Because she flicks her cigarette.
Basically, yeah.
So they talk about the guy's name is Benjamin Rector, Mr. Jingles. They give the backstory that he served time in Vietnam, and he apparently liked to kill, and he cut off people's ears. That was his token. And he liked war so much that he went back to serve a second time in overseas. But he worked as a janitor or as a...
So yeah, I think so. He got dishonorably discharged.
That's it.
Somehow finagled his way back into another term.
Another term? Yeah.
And then I guess when he came back, for whatever reason, the only job he could get is just basically the disgruntled janitor at the camp. So you can imagine you're probably not in the best headspace after all that's happened in your life. You've been cutting off people's ears for years.
Well, you're out in the woods.
Yeah, you got some ear necklaces going on. You're not in the best headspace. Oh my God. And you got like annoying little kids running around all summer screaming at you. So yeah, you're gonna snap.
Yeah.
And he sure he did. So 19, going back to 1970 where the murders happened, and then that's where Leslie Grossman comes in. She must have like a sonic ear. Like it just shows up. And like, I'm going to tell her how it is. If you're going to tell the story, this is how it went down. There were 10 kids killed, technically 9.
Yeah.
And she tells a story about how she was one that survived, and that's where we got to see her ear nub.
That's how she hears so good.
She still has a nub though, so the glasses stay on. Don't worry, everybody. She cleared that up on Twitter. If you don't follow Miss Leslie G on Twitter, she's a great follow. You've got to.
I love that, and we'll have to post that picture that she puts an explanation with a sad face that she's got an ear nub. So we got to see the ear nub, and I was like, that explains the Farrah Fawcett hair.
That's someone like really opening up to you when they show you like.
I mean, yeah.
She really wanted to.
Ear nub.
So we have a moment where after that happens on the fire, I think Brooke breaks away to check on the guy in the road. I keep calling him the roadkill guy because we don't have a name. He doesn't give his name.
That's true. We never.
He's a totally anonymous person.
Right.
He's like the quintessential Star Trek guy in Red or something in the old episodes. If you wear
You just
red,
knew
it's
you
gonna
were out. Yeah.
Or was it blue? I can't remember, but it was one of those.
Yeah.
It was like, oh, that person's gone.
gone.
Yeah. He almost died, but now he's definitely going to die.
Yeah.
But he's kind of like dressed hippie-ish, so it's like, did he come from? And he seemed. I can't remember if we find out in this scene or the next one with him, but he seemed to kind of know what the camp was at least, because when he found out where he was like, we're in danger, we gotta get out of here.
We're in Camp Redwood, and he freaked out and grabbed her arm, and
we find out that he had his ear cut off.
Yeah.
potentially, I'm jumping ahead a little bit.
No,
here,
but he did, and then it makes you wonder, well, when did that year happen? Did it happen before you arrived in camp, or when you were all on around the campfire?
Right.
It's just, there's a lot of questions. Again,
Yeah.
back to Scooby-Doo.
Throwing out all the
Jinkies.
options and seeing if we can figure it out.
Right, so, we're back in the cabin, and the boys' cabin, they're all hanging out, and then enters, I can't even say his name, Matthew Morrison. I don't remember his character's name, but I don't want to call him Dirk Diggler because he just shows up.
I mean,
with
basically.
with this piece, and he's like swaggering it around. Like,
Trevor.
Trevor.
Yes,
Oh, God,
but
that
Trevor
sounds-
has some standout attributes.
Well, according to Montana, it was a baby elephant's trunk.
Yes.
Flopping around.
And I mean, if you're distracting from Jane Fonda, that's pretty impressive.
She's
Back
the star
in
of the
day,
show.
that was.
Yes. Jane Fonda. Oh my, I remember that lady. Oh my God. I remember that Jane Fonda workout. So, and that thing was hysterical. So his claim to fame was being kicked off the Jane Fonda exercise videos, and he was an extra in the Three's Company ending credits when they're on the bicycle on the beach. I caught that. I almost
very
wanted to Google it
precise.
last
Right,
night
you
and look
see.
for that.
Same. I thought about that. I was
I
like,
just
is this
might.
real?
I just might. So, Montana being as thirsty as she is in her blue eyeshadow, they decide to go for a swim, and Mr. Trevor joins her, which I think is hysterical. And I thought, are they going to get one of those flesh brain eating bacterias? It's summer, it's hot, they're out there in that dirty water.
Yeah, I'm expecting somebody to like shoot an arrow like through their heads or something from across. It's just like this typically doesn't end well, but then it's also too soon to be.
It was very soon. I mean, come on, Nick. We've already got like a head count of 12 people.
I know,
Like, be careful.
I know.
We'll save some for the rest of the
Yeah.
series. But anyways, what scared me, I actually was kind of frightening that there was a car. The lights went out just as the crack of thunder.
Right.
And
As he went under, they turned on. It was
Timing was
it was
great.
all one sequence.
it was like this flow, yes. It was like a
Right.
dance. It was a very well choreographed. But it
Yeah,
makes
it
you
was.
wonder, okay, who is that? Was that Leslie Grossman trying to warn them to behave?
Right.
Was it our Mr. Jingles just arriving when he broke out from the asylum? Or was it Ramirez scooping out the scene? Or the copycat killer? Who knows who could have been? That's what was crazy. So when that scene happens, then we go into another portion where
Montana does say that you don't want to be out here with your lightning rod.
yes, oh my God, I forgot
That was
about
great,
that.
yeah.
That was her way of like, yeah, you're the
Yeah.
man, baby. Let's go.
Right.
Let's get him out of the water. She knows how to stroke
She's
the
got some
ego.
transitions, yeah.
She sure does. I think we get to see Billy Lord in a new way. And I kind of like this. I kind of like this Billy Lord character. So we fast forward and we're into what I thought was Laurie Metcalf. I was like, what is Roseanne's sister doing in the middle of the night in a thunderstorm? Pulling into this guard shack, and I thought the guard
Right.
shack was drunk, but it was one of the occupants of this asylum, which I think, okay.
I mean, we
This
pulled
was-
this scene straight out of Halloween, which
Absolutely.
I'm all about.
Absolutely, yes. All was missing was Jamie Lee Curtis.
Right.
But she
You pull
walks
up,
in.
it's rainy, you got the mental patient, it's just kind of roaming around outside. You're
Yes.
like, this doesn't seem like it should be
That
happening.
made me homesick. Kidding. But then you even got the bald warden, which was kind of like the detective from Halloween as
Yeah.
well. It looked it was like all it was missing was some glasses or something, and a gun in his hand and a trench coat. But yes, so they flash forward to 3 hours earlier. Here we go again.
Yeah.
I mean, flash back 3
Yeah.
hours earlier, and they show an orderly checking on Mr. Jingles. And
Sneaky Mr. Jingles.
he faked his death by hanging, which is, I think, a rip-off of Goonies. That's how the Goonies movie opened, where one of the mobsters faked his own death hanging in a cell. So there's a little 80s reference in there, and the orderly was smiling at him. I'm like, you're dead.
They had history. You can tell.
I mean, I think he was kind of seeing like the magazine deals and being the one to find Mr. Jingles dead. Like, think of the story you can sell.
He's gonna be on Sally
I think,
Jesse or
yeah.
Geraldo
I
Rivera.
think he was
Gonna
seeing
go on
some-
tour for
Yeah,
a
he was
bit.
seeing some dollar signs, I
Yeah,
think.
probably. Alba was the man that
Got
found
a
him
little
dead.
blinded, yeah.
And now he did get blinded. We get a first look at the killer's face, and I'm excited to that it's the same actor that played Twisty. So he's basically killed him until his eyes saw red and left him for dead, and then just walked out and hit all the buttons and everyone's free.
Now, is a master release button a good idea? Like, do we really need that?
I'm gonna say yes, because if it was me, that's the distraction. Keep everyone on.
No, I mean, but like having that button
And
itself.
like built into a
like,
real prison.
like I guess if there's a fire, maybe,
Right.
but like I don't
Right.
know. I was like, do we need that?
I think you're right. I think by code you have to have a master switch.
Might be.
But it just seemed like it was like an electric box, like where you flick the switch, where you would think it would be in a guarded area,
That's
like at a terminal.
maybe not quite so accessible.
Just like a glass box that flicks up and you just like
it was
press
just
the
like
button.
okay, so
Like
I
a
don't
nuclear
know.
warhead, you both have to turn the key.
Yeah, I don't know. Just
I
a
can
little
see
questionable for me.
that. Well, again, this is a Scooby-Doo. So we're talking campy slasher film, so
True.
which is what they did. They made you always look at the TV screen like that was way too easy, or why didn't you think of that? I mean, you can still look at Leatherhead and an old Texas Chainsaw, and you're like, can you just run a little faster to the kids?
Well, speaking of that, Mr. Jingles got quite a limp going on. I don't think
That's
he's gonna be
true.
chasing many people down. You know.
That's a good point. That's a good point.
Yeah.
Because that might target more of who are the other murderers. See, there's going to be several murderers here.
Yeah, that's what I
Yeah.
think too. Each one's gonna have their distinctive characteristics.
Yeah.
But I definitely, I'm going to call it right now that there's a copycat killer I think to scare people that there's a Jingles loose. And maybe they don't realize he's loose yet.
He's actually,
I think that's what's going to happen.
could be.
That's my theory.
Yeah.
That's my
So
theory.
they
on
also
that.
found the newspaper article clipping that he had of Camp Redwood reopening. So you knew, like, Margaret, you in danger, girl.
Well, I have to laugh. That's like leaving the clue right there in your face to make it easy. Oh, find me here. This is where I'm gonna be at. Like,
Yeah.
it's like maybe.
Well, I just think I don't know if they like get the daily paper when you're like in that kind of a situation or not, but this obviously, I mean, he's been locked up for what, 14 years.
Yeah.
Seeing this obviously like was the
Ignited.
motivation he needed. He's like,
Yeah.
all right, time to get back out there, got some more kids to slaughter.
Mm-hmm.
And his first victim, he goes to the gas station.
Yeah, that's another classic scene. The one who tries to warn the people always ends up getting killed.
Mm-hmm.
And
Try to do
He's
some
either,
good.
he's either in on it or he's the one getting killed.
yeah.
Mhm.
If it's like the backwoods, like inbred, wrong turn, they're probably in on it. If it's just like
Mhm.
typical slasher, they gonna die.
Yeah.
And he's underneath the car, which is like, oh, you're going down
Yeah.
by yourself. And you
Yeah.
hear jingling of keys,
Yeah,
and
I
footsteps.
thought they built the tension really well, like in that
They
did.
shot
Yeah.
right there.
That reminded,
Mhm.
yeah, there was something like
Check
that.
first. No, I was like, okay. Checking again. Like, you know, it's too
And then
late.
crushed
Mhm.
and
Yeah.
face stomped. That was a horrible way to go. That was a horrible way to go. So he crushes him, he stomps his, and then he takes his keys.
Yeah.
He took his
I
keys.
mean, you're
That's
Mr.
like
Jingles. You can't be walking around not
But he
jingling.
didn't take his ear.
Did he not?
No.
We didn't see it at least.
No. I thought it was interesting that was like another
Yeah.
token, like the keys and
Yeah.
the ears. I just thought that was very
Maybe he
interesting.
didn't really get into character until, he had the keys on him.
Yeah. And then they show like a silhouette of someone in a raincoat arriving at the lake. I did make a note of that. I saw something like that happen. And then we're back into the cabin and they're showing the Olympics, and that's where Chet is, upset and having a little void rage that he should have been in the Olympics. And
Right. I kind of maybe skipped over that at the beginning, but yeah. So he
in the van. He talked about the van.
so he was supposed to be part of Team USA, and then something showed up in his drug test that got him kicked out right before the Olympics, and he's a little bit salty.
Mhm.
I don't think we find out what his sport was supposed to be.
I don't think they mentioned the sport.
Right.
I don't think they mentioned the sport, which is ironic because it's the Summer Games and he's a
Winter Olympian
in real life.
So
So they get into a little bit of a tiff, and he throws something at Rain and get his hands cut. So they go back.
yeah, he
to
crushes up the
medical.
beer can, so obviously he kind of got like the sharp sides of it, of
Yeah.
it, and just slices his hand a little bit.
So Brooke goes with him. I'll help you, and then there's a little moment between him.
There
and
was. There was.
And I was like, okay, something's gonna happen there. It was a little like
Potentially.
Could have been the start of a spark.
It could have been. It totally could have been. And then I think this is where Brooke finds the guy on the door, the roadkill guy.
Right, so he's kind of like pinned up to the door with.
That was right out of Jason.
Oh yeah,
Voorhees.
Jason loves that one too, for sure. So she finds that, and
It
then
happened so quickly. So she
Yeah.
goes looking through the cabinet. She turns around. His body swings open on the
Right.
door. She freaks out because he's like pinned on there. And then the shot goes to someone in the window with a flash of lightning, and it's a raincoat silhouette.
Now, did we see? Was it Jingles for sure? Could we tell?
Well, this is the thing though, is that later
Right.
on, Leslie Grossman shows up in that same raincoat.
Exactly.
So it makes me wonder if that's like a camp-issued raincoat that anyone has access to.
I thought we saw his face, but I could be wrong.
It could
I don't
be.
know.
I think it was intentional.
Might
I
have-
can't tell who
might
it
have
was,
good
obviously.
idea.
But I thought that was pretty freaking scary. And she takes off running, and I think it's hysterical that they kind of cut between her running through the mud and freaking out, and then the Olympic torch on the
Yeah.
1984 games.
Passing it off now to so and so who will light the torch.
Here's Brooke. No, never mind.
Tumbling
She
in the
doesn't got
mud,
this.
yeah.
Let's go back and give it to the black guy. He's gonna run and get up those stairs.
But I was thinking, okay, it would make sense if it was Jingles, because she's stumbling, tumbling everywhere, like splashing in the mud, and she still gets away. So if he's kind of like limping after her,
He won't make it
yeah,
after her.
she's
That's a good
still
point.
even if she's fallen over every 5 steps, she still outruns him.
And then she makes it back to the cabin. She tells all the guys in there what happens, and I'm like, what? And, did you mix your purple haze with your angel dust? And they take her. They go back, and I think it's funny that I think it's Nurse Rita, right? The actress from Pose that plays the nurse. She's the only one in the front with the flashlight that has the balls to open the door, take a look, and all the guys are like, yeah, you got
They're
this,
like,
yeah.
So then they kind of ease out there, and they're like,
I understand.
no. But then, they go and check the infirmary, because she's like, well, okay, maybe there's no one out here, but the dead body is definitely still going to be hanging on the door, except it was not.
It's not. It's gone, and no trace of it, no blood,
body.
nothing. And then this is where Leslie Grossman shows up, or I should say, Margaret Booth shows up. Like, what are you guys doing? Like, just at that time, which makes me go, jinkies, a little bit too much.
And they're like, okay, obviously he woke up, he was feeling better, and he left. It is pouring down, raining.
She
Do y'all
is
think
not
he just
concerned.
walked out the door?
Yeah.
Marge, come on, I'm gonna call her Marge. I feel like I'd be friends with her.
Oh,
Marge.
I like Marge.
He did not just get up and walk out the door into the storm.
She's like, we have a big day tomorrow. He's fine. We don't one less person to worry about. I was like, oh my god. Literally.
That's something a killer would say.
Philip
Just
swept under the
saying.
rug.
So I caught this. I wrote this down. She looks at Brooke like, oh my god, you're so filthy and dirty. Go get yourself cleaned up. Cleanliness is next to godliness.
Right,
And I was
right.
like, oh my god, there we go with all the cheesy stereotype phrases. But can I back up a little bit, back to her religious zealot? I forgot to mention, when she's telling them the story about how she survived the murder, she talks about like this rapture moment where she had an out-of-body experience, that she projected herself out of her body.
She was just watching it happen.
He cut her ear off and she did not move.
Flinch or blink in the
So, I mean, that's...
She played dead. She was so
Right.
scared straight.
I mean, that's life-altering to say the very least.
Absolutely.
So, I mean,
That would
like
probably
a
obviously that
significant
trauma
traumatic incident.
Yeah,
would
so you kinda
affect
get
her
it.
behavior. So here's
Right.
my next question: did she become a murderer? Is it because
That's
of
what
it?
I'm like saying. Like, oh, that's one less person to worry about. That's definitely something a killer would say.
That doesn't sound like a person with a good moral compass.
Mm-mm.
Just saying.
No.
I'm just
No.
saying. So the scene ends and we're back into the cabin and the payphone rings again. Brooke by an open window. No, this is the payphone
No, girl.
ringing.
Let me just say, the Night Stalker has almost killed you. Mr. Jingles or somebody in a raincoat's almost killed you, and you're just gonna walk out in the middle of the night and answer a payphone?
Sure.
I don't know.
There it is. I could just see my sister Ida yelling at the TV at this girl. Well, she goes to wake up Dakota. Montana.
There you are again.
Wrong state. She goes to wake up Montana. Montana wakes up with a switchblade.
I'm a fan.
I forget what she says. I'm a suspicious. I think I wrote it down.
Something like, yeah.
I'm suspicious by nature.
Yeah,
That's what
yeah.
she said. I'm suspicious by nature. So she sleeps with a switchblade and her makeup on still. And she was like, I don't give a fuck about the payphone. And goes right back to bed. And Brooke's like,
The right response.
yeah.
Right.
And that's how you survive, right?
Exactly.
And Brooks decides to go for it, and she goes over to the payphone. What happens after that? Ramirez shows up.
Yeah.
That's what it is. That's like end scene. That's.
So we know we've got Ramirez on the scene, Jingles on the loose,
and I still think it's a third.
Someone making threatening calls to Xavier.
Because
Margaret Booth, maybe a little unhinged.
So how we forgot you mentioned, but the roadkill guy, when he was by himself, walked up to the mirror, did this, and saw that his ear was cut off. So that was question mark, because that happened before Jingles showed up, before he was released. So at what point did that happen to him? Was he one of the kids from 1970? He seemed a little young, but was he one of the kids from 1970 that survived, as well as Leslie? Or is this...
his ear looked a little bit bloody.
It looked a little fresh.
So that looked like that might have happened. I don't know.
It was the same left ear. Was it Leslie? Was it Marge cutting it
to
make her own ear?
She, as far as we know, she didn't recognize him, but
maybe
he never got to see her again. So maybe if he'd woken up and seen her, he might have.
I don't know. It's just there's a lot of questions. And I felt like they put a lot of material into this episode off the bat.
It felt like a good 2/3 of the slasher movie in this one episode.
It was a lot of forced. Yeah. And I wrote down 80s references. I mean, they cocaine, bombs, Polaroids, leg warmers, payphones, answering machines, Rolling Stones meant too, but Rolling Stones is pretty much transcends every generation.
Competitive
aerobics, yeah. Jane Fonda workouts, Three's Company, spike belts that Xavier was wearing with his white pants, headbands, hairspray. The Olympics, Larry Flint trials. All it was missing was the election year. That was also an election year as well.
Which we've seen in the
credits. We saw
opening credits. So I wonder they'll throw
There's just so much. There's so much references thrown in there, and I think they really wanted to make it clear that you were watching something happening in the 80s. So, what are your favorite moments?
Obviously the opening scene really just kind of set the tone for what we were watching. You know, I think even if you... We're at work, what?
That's me. That's me at work. Anyways, we should probably wrap this up. Anyways, I'm sorry. But I agree with you. It was only the first 3 minutes, the killing, and then for me, the campiness of the opening credits.
For sure.
That was my favorite part. I think the rest we're going to have to figure out as we go along, because it was a lot thrown at us that we're going to have to figure out.
Yeah, I think my favorite was probably the description and history of Mr. Jingles. I thought that was really, really descriptive, really well done, and I just love he loves attrition, and he loves getting a good killing, which is, I thought was this
I just want to say in my notes I have how Jingles got his keys back instead of how Stella got her groove back. I was pretty proud of myself for that one. So I just have to call that out.
That's a good t-shirt for Halloween. I like that.
Just had to throw that out there.
Yeah. Love it. Well, we'll see you guys next week. Follow us, hit the subscribe button, and peace out.
See you guys.
That was awesome.
That was good.
That's Colin Moss.
So rude.
That was so terrible.
How dare they?
How dare they?